Welcome back. I'm Tedward, and today, thanks to Boston Motorsports in Brighton, Massachusetts, we're driving a 2021 Audi RS Q8. And this is the ultimate SUV from the brand. It has 591 horsepower from its 4-liter twin-turbo V8. It'll do 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds. And today, we're driving a tuned version. You see the APR badge back here, so we are actually dealing with a warranted tune that boosts this up just a bit more. You might call this the poor man's Urus, or Urus, depending on who wants to comment on my pronunciation. I don't really care, because today we're going to play with this thing, and it is very green. And by the way, this paint color, unlike its brethren in the VW group, did not cost an exorbitant amount of money. This was like a $400-something option, not a $12,000 paint to sample endeavor. Now, we'll review the car objectively, but personally, I've got to inject my opinion here because I'm more of a wagon guy. I am a little disappointed that we've gone the way of wolf in sheep's clothing from the early 2000s, like a E39 M5, to this. And now, this is still kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing if the wolf was wearing a bright green tuxedo. No one would expect that this is as capable as it is. But, you know, Audi styling cues, of course, we've got monster 23-inch wheels, and it's a square setup, 295s front and rear. And one of the most distinguishing features up front are these insane RS brake calipers, which you'll also find on the Lamborghini Urus. They have 10 pistons. They are 10 piston calipers. Styling-wise, I do think this car is pretty beautiful. It has a lot of fun arches, and I like the paint-matched wheel arches here. And then up front, we've got carbon fiber surrounding this with our kind of unfortunately piano black grille, but that's fine. And it's got the black optics package, so it does kind of subdue a little of the insanity up here. But obviously, this car is not meant to be subtle. They definitely went all out, especially with the color. And in the rear, we have massive exhaust pipes, but it is 2021, and of course, they're not real. And there's plenty of fake fascias on here. Like all of this, that's not open. And then these vents, that's not open. So I know a lot of people complain about the Honda Civic Type R with its fake vents, but we've got to hold the Germans accountable too. They are not without blame. But, of course, it is a family vehicle. You've got tons of space for all of your luggage and your children or your dog. You can fold these seats down. In the rear, we've got fairly simple seats back here, not a ton of room. I've actually got this seat pushed back just a bit further than I normally drive for the shot. So this actually would have more legroom when I'm driving it. And then touch screens galore, which we're going to talk about that later because I think you can already see my dirty fingerprints all over this infotainment system, which does bother me quite a bit. But I mean, what are you going to do? This is the way everybody's setting up their cars. So I can complain about it here, but I don't know that I'm changing the world. The center armrest has a little clip, so you unhook, and then we've got our cup holders here. Kind of small cup holders. I mean, not that I really care, but like these are like sippy cup holders. I don't think you could fit much in there. But I do like the HVAC system in these cars. They definitely give the rear passengers quite a bit of control over how much and how little air is going to be on them. So that's nice. The doors are well upholstered. We've got leather, carbon fiber, Alcantara, and then we've got the Bang & Olufsen speaker down here. And the headliner's all Alcantara, and we've got a nice panoramic roof. Doesn't quite come back over the rear passengers, but I mean, it does the trick. I guess it does introduce plenty of light into the cabin. So let's jump in, start it up, and go for a drive. And by the way, the startup on this thing is outrageous. Ready? Listen to this. You got to do this with the door open. This is AMG levels of V8 awesomeness. That is wonderful. Listen to this thing from the outside. That's a motorboat. That is a speedboat. This is awesome. And when it's running, we get to see the awesome lighting setup on Audis. I think Audis have some of the nicest lighting design in the game right now. Our key fob actually does have the RS logo on it, which I think is really cool. And then Audi, nice enough to give you a spot for your key. Not everybody does this. I actually think I appreciate that a lot because we're beyond the days where you plug your key fob into anything. So let's get out there and make some noise. She's quick. She is quick. It's not quite as fast as I was anticipating. I thought this was going to be a little more outrageous, and I'm not feeling quite the same violence that a Urus provides. I feel like the Urus, being about 50 horsepower up on the standard RS Q8, you notice it. There is a noticeable speed improvement. This being an APR tune, I thought it was going to be right on par. It doesn't feel quite as fast as that Urus. No one's behind us. Let's have a little taste of these brakes. Ooh, really smooth down to that. And we're not even, I mean, maybe I wasn't fully in it, but I wasn't getting all this ABS chattering. That was a nice straight line brake. And those 295s, Conti Sport contacts are doing their job. All right, let's get her back into dynamic mode. Ooh, yeah. That's more like it. That's the stuff. See, I feel like you've got to use the paddles. When I had it in the other mode, it felt like it wasn't shifting quite as hard, or when I wanted it to, it felt like it was delayed and I was getting a little down on this transmission. That made me feel like I've got confidence in it again. That's good. That's great. That worked. Now, another thing that's a problem with these cars, not a problem, but Audi always uses these plasticky paddles. Even on an Audi R8, they use plasticky paddles, and I don't understand. It's something that you're interacting with very regularly on the car, and it's really easy to spend a touch more money to make the car feel more premium. And I don't know if this is kind of an Audi versus Lamborghini thing, like, ooh, if you want the expensive stuff, you've got to get the Urus, you've got to get the Huracan. I'm not sure if that's the intent, but I always just feel a little cheated when I get into an expensive Audi, and I still have to deal with these paddles. See how she copes over like normal roads, because the reality is this is your deal. Oh, that's, yeah, all right. These are some pretty aggressive shifts here. The reality is you are going to be driving this like a normal car. So let's just put it in auto and see what happens. It's stiff. There's not much you're going to be able to do with a 23-inch wheel that's going to like help you absorb shock through a roadway. I mean, that's just these are very large wheels. So even though the suspension can certainly cope with the bumps and things like that, you are going to have a lot of road imperfections translated into the cabin. I'm not a huge fan of the drive select buttons being where they are. I kind of just want a knob. I have to like think and look, and although there's haptic feedback, I still have to look down to see where I'm touching. Now I do have the RS button on the steering wheel, but I don't know, it doesn't seem to do quite the same thing that does if I wanted to get into, say, off-road mode or something to rise it up for a large speed bump. The noise this thing makes, though, it's just raucous. This is phenomenal. I think the soundtrack to this RS Q8 is really satisfying. So despite maybe not hitting my speed expectations, the theater expectations are definitely on point. Now the gearbox, I was kind of expecting snappier shifts. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like condemning the thing. I just, we're talking top of the line, we're talking RS. I want to know what they can do. And I don't feel like I'm getting everything from them. The brakes feel a little mushy, and once you get into them, they're great. It's not like it's mushy when you start getting force applied to those pads, but the first bit of travel, it's very soft, and that's not my favorite feeling in the world in a car that can do 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds. You want to have that confidence of strong brakes right on tap, but you just got to dig for them a little more than maybe you would want to. I think the most interesting thing about the car is this engine. Obviously, the powertrain's fantastic and it's shouty and loud. I think it's got a lot of character, which some may not like. I think the 4-liter in the Mercedes with the bi-turbo 4-liter, that has a lot more throttle response and there's less turbo lag than this. The steering, I'm on the fence about the steering. I think it's very comfortable. And if you've driven an Audi A5, you know what the steering on this feels like. So for better or worse, maybe you want your Audis all to feel the same. I thought this would feel a little more special on an RS version of the car, but it just kind of feels like the rest of the cars. The only issue I take with the steering is that it's a bit numb. I don't have as much tactility as I'd like because there's a lot going on here, and because there's such quick response, because there's so little sidewall on these 23-inch wheels with those little skinny tires, I kind of want to know what's happening through my fingertips more. I just want a little more of that. It's kind of fun to short shift it just because I love the tone changes in this engine. It's fantastic. Ooh, the little snaps and the cracks and the pops. That's pretty nuts. It's so capable, but it's also fairly large. Like, this is a narrow little road, and I like this road to showcase suspension absorption over bumps because there's no like real potholes, but it's undulating and there's some frost heaves now that it's getting cold. But placing it, you know, I'm not like a typical SUV driver, but placing it on the road, you've got to be a little bit clever. I do like the rear diff though, because the way this puts down power to the rear end is so good. You're always confident that it's going to put down power to all four wheels and you're not going to get slipped. So I am pretty impressed with that, I've got to say. I find myself really on the fence about this thing. I mean, I always thought this was just a Urus with an Audi badge. This is the poor man's Urus. You basically get the same platform, same engine, and you can do it for a heck of a lot less money. Starting to understand that it's not. You've got to pay to play, and I think the Urus is a noticeable step up from this vehicle. But that's not to say this isn't worthy. This is still plenty fast and outrageous. And it's kind of funny how an SUV like this just like eggs you on to drive a little faster. Certainly a capable chassis. I mean, this thing really can boogie. It'll move. But you get the sense of that weight and why you probably need those 10-piston calipers up front to make sure that you're going to be able to bring it back down in a hurry. The dashboard's great. I love having the moving map over here on the left. It's the right size. I don't have to take my eyes off the road for very long to figure out what's going on or where I'm going. And on the highway, this is a nice cruiser. It's revving very low. We have 8 speeds in this automatic transmission, so we're only at about 1600 RPM at 70 miles an hour. And because we have the 48-volt hybrid system, mild hybrid system, we are able to coast. And in whatever circumstances, I know it's able to essentially turn this engine off and just kind of cruise. So you do get some perks, although I know you're not buying a 590 horsepower twin turbo V8 for fuel efficiency, but the mild hybrid system definitely, reduces some of that burden on you. I want to hear from you guys about fast SUV versus station wagon, estate. I love an E63 wagon. I think that's a really cool thing. An RS6, fantastic. What is your choice? Because obviously the market seems to have spoken that these fast SUVs, the X7 M50i, the RSQ8, the X5 and X3M competitions, they've obviously dominated. I mean, that's what you buy at this point if you want the fast family wagon. They're basically GTIs that don't pass an Olympic drug test. What do you want, though? Is this the path you want to see the automotive, world go in, or should there be more fast wagon options? Should we be getting M3 wagons, M5 wagons? I will say, it doesn't feel quite as intense as a Urus, so you do have to pay to play, but that's all right. Thank you so much to Boston Motorsports for letting me drive this outrageous green machine. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. We've got our drive modes down here, so if we hit RS mode, puts us there. Only use this function on closed road courses. Sure. Okay. Let's do 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. And we'll just mat it. I'm not going to do a full-blown launch control. This guy loves it. He's into it. The Tesla guy's into this thing. He's like, this thing is green as hell. Who would have thought this would be the car